Hello, souls and demons, and welcome back to the portal. Today's story is called The Thing in the Parking Lot, written by Objective Tell 6047. So sit back, grip your seats, and enjoy. I worked for a major retail company for several years. I won't give you the name, but I will tell you that I was recently transferred to the night shift for my department. I worked days for a long time, and it absolutely stressed me out, for several reasons. First, the manager never seemed to take the job seriously. He didn't help out much of anybody, and he wasn't the best at training people. He certainly didn't train me very well at things at all. He would tell me things once and then expect me to figure it out on my own. Second, there would be periods in which I would be on my own and I would be swamped with everything. At those moments, I would have to serve customers, cook fresh products, and even answer the phone to deal with orders, dumb questions, and even complaints. I would have to juggle these all at one time. There would be instances in which the manager would be gone and leave to me all of these. Lastly, I would often be the closer for my department. Normally this isn't so bad for me, but it is very time-consuming. I would have to clean up everything, do the dishes, wipe the counters, and make sure that nothing was left behind for anyone else. Certain things had to be shut down at specific times, but I sometimes tried getting away with shutting things off a few minutes early. I remember in one instance I was trying to close for the holiday season. I was closing, and a guy came up asking for something. I told him we were closed, and he acted like he didn't believe me. He came across as very hostile to me because I shut everything off. I would come home often with my stress level through the roof. I'd be ready to scream loud enough for the neighbors to hear me or to punch a hole through the drywall. My wife was always worried about my mental state whenever I came home like that. There were a lot of days like that. Whenever I was working, I tried my hardest to keep my cool so that I wouldn't get into too much trouble. I could deal with a lecture, but I sure as hell couldn't afford to get fired. There were times when my stress and my anxiety got the better of me, and I would lash out at both my coworkers and customers. After one incident, that I won't give the details about, I did get a write-up. Another one probably would have resulted in termination. It was then that I decided to start job hunting again. I was tired of stressing out and coming home to my wife in a bad mood. I looked all over to get a job offer at a supply company in a nearby town. I turned in my 2 weeks and looked forward to a new start, or at least something I could handle a little bit better. Then about a week before my last day, one of the store managers came up to me and offered me something, the night shift. What I would do is work my department and get things ready for opening. Not being ready for opening was a common issue in our area. They really wanted me to consider this option. In spite of my demeanor when I worked, I did a really good job with everything and they didn't want me to go. It was a tempting offer to be sure. My schedule would follow the truck deliveries, which came in the early morning hours. That meant when they weren't coming, I had the night off. I wouldn't have to deal with customers or coworkers to an extent. Not to mention I would get a $2 raise, getting $1 more than what the supply company was offering me. I started considering that I may be certifiably insane to even think about this offer. Well, since my company became the highest bidder, certifiable insanity won, and I took the job. It turned out to not be so bad, honestly. Nobody really bothered me, and I got a lot of stuff done. That is, everything I could get done. I wouldn't even have to deal with Mickey. Mickey was the most senior person in our department without being the manager. She was one of the coworkers that I wouldn't necessarily have to deal with for a long period of time, but still got under my skin. She was the kind of person who would act like the boss without wanting the responsibility. She was an older woman, 60s I think, who always seemed to have a chip on her shoulder. If anything wasn't done to her satisfaction, she would immediately go on a rant and just become plain hostile. She was not an easy person to work with. I was glad to not have to deal with her anymore. My nightly chores were simple. I would retrieve our delivery from the back and work it to the floor. Any extras would be placed in our designated backup area. I would take record of what we had or didn't have. Expired products would be thrown out, and what was about to expire would have the price reduced. I'd be done by 6:30 in the morning with the sunrise to greet me as I left. The better part is that I got 2 raises. One was my automatic night premium at an extra $2 an hour. The other, since this was when the COVID-19 pandemic started in the US, I got hazard pay. That bumped me up to another $2 per hour. Since I could reduce my exposure to the virus exponentially by doing the night shift, I felt it was great to take the job when I did. Then some weird shit started happening. It all began when I started taking my breaks outside. There was a break room in the back of the store, which was fine for when it was cold or raining outside. The problem, though, was that the TV was hooked up via dish satellite and the signal would go in and out during storms. The Wi-Fi signal was also non-existent. On nights when the weather was fine, I'd sit out under the stars. I would do such things as catch up on reading and watching old Filthy Frank videos on YouTube. Mostly I preferred to just sit out underneath the stars and look up at the night sky. Looking at the infinite black void of space from my tiny spot felt soothing to me. It's like if I were going out in space and looking at the globe in front of me, I realized just how insignificant my problems were. I didn't really notice anything strange that night, aside from the sounds of yips and whoas. I thought it was just some animals I didn't recognize. I finished my shift at the regular time without any issues. My routine for the night shift was come home, sleep, wake up mid to late afternoon, do a workout, make dinner, spend time with my wife, and go in at 10 p.m. Doing this made me feel like my stress levels went down. On the next night, I didn't hear anything odd during my lunch break. In fact, I didn't hear anything at all. No birds, no insects, no frogs. We were down the street from a nature preserve and a river ran by our property. During the summer, bullfrogs would be making their sounds. It was strange that they were so silent. When I was driving home, I noticed animal carcasses all over the road. Some birds, squirrels, and a couple of deer. I woke up later that day to the reports of large amounts of roadkill in the area. There were warnings that it was likely caused by a bear that wandered into the area. Residents were warned to be wary of any large carnivores they encounter. After what I saw the next night, I don't think it was a bear. I sat outside on my lunch break, observing the grassy field across the street. It was a large, flat field that adjoined one of the local cemeteries. While sitting down and looking ahead, I saw a large, pale form skidding across the field on all fours. I peered closer to see what it was, but all I could make out was a bright, pale mass with arms and legs. Just as quickly as it appeared, it suddenly vanished. I spent the rest of my night shift a little freaked out about seeing whatever that thing was. I got home before my wife went to work. It was hard to doze off, let alone sleep, because I couldn't stop wondering about what I saw. After reluctantly getting out of bed later than I usually would, I turned on the news. There wasn't a report about more roadkill. Instead, it was a human body that was found in the park near my town. It was a woman in her mid-20s, wearing a jogging suit. She was found in the early morning hours, her intestines strewn all about her. Her throat was also cut open. That brought me back to seeing the thing the other night. I could never be sure, but I think maybe it was chasing something. I didn't know it at the time, but this next night would be my last night working there. I wasn't on my break this time like I was when something happened. This time I happened to be taking the trash out to the dumpster. There was quite a heavy load I had to take out. Some products that nobody bothered to take out earlier that day. I opened the side latch and tried to get the bags in there. It took quite a bit of effort to get the heavy bag inside. They nearly split open, they were so heavy. When I did get them inside, I was hit with a nauseous odor of rotting garbage from sitting in the heat of July. I closed the latch as it gave off a loud metallic screech. I was about to turn around when I heard a growling sound coming from the night air. It was a deep, guttural rumble that sounded inhuman and hungry. I looked around to see where it was coming from. My 360-degree turn yielded nothing. The sound came from every direction. as if from some invisible thing that was sizing me up. I walked backwards slowly, then turned to walk back to my store. I started picking up the pace. I just wanted to get back inside quick. I heard the scratch of claws against gravel speeding toward me. I turned around to see what was making that noise. I only looked for a second, not even trying to process the snarling gray mass coming toward me. My stress level spiked back up and activated my fight or flight response. My body chose flight. All I remember seeing was something with human-like limbs crawling on all fours toward me. I ran to my car, almost dropping my keys as I unlocked it. I opened the door and entered quickly, barely closing before speeding off. The thing, this fiend, rammed into my vehicle before I raced out of the parking lot. I drove faster and faster until the store vanished from my rearview mirror. I kept checking to see if the thing had followed me. I finally took a breath when I got back to my apartment. Upon inspecting my vehicle, I found a large dent on the back left, the taillight completely shattered. There were also scratches near the tires. I didn't sleep at all that night. I kept peering through the shades, feeling a mixture of fear and a morbid curiosity of what the thing looked like up close. Sunrise came, as it eventually does, and no creature revealed itself. Come that morning, I heard that one of my coworkers was found dead in the parking lot. He had been torn apart and his organs were discarded all over. Large chunks of his flesh were bitten off. After that night and hearing about my coworker, I resigned that day. I got a new job in which I could work from home. I was okay with being a shut-in. Outside, something prowls that craves flesh. It can be animal or human, but it craves it. When night comes around, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of whatever that thing is. I'm afraid that one night I'm sleeping with my wife, and I would hear growling outside. Then I imagine the thing, with a horrible snarling, would be scratching at the window.